Welcome back. Tonight we're traveling to the southern tip of Africa, to a land where ancient traditions collide with colonial history, where the boundaries between the living and the dead have never been quite as clear as the rest of the world might believe. So tonight we're going into the heart of South Africa, where something beautiful and deeply tragic happened decades ago. A story that's been verified by police officers, documented by journalists, and witnessed by hundreds of ordinary people just trying to get home. This isn't just folklore passed down through generations. These are real encounters with real people in real places you can visit today. Stories so consistent, so well documented that even the most hardened skeptics struggle to explain them away. What we're about to explore tonight challenges everything you think you know about death, love, and the power of unfinished business. It's the kind of story that makes you believe that some bonds are so strong, not even death can break them. So let's dive into a place where the past refuses to stay buried, where love transcends the grave, and where the most heartbreaking ghost story you've never heard is still unfolding today, decades after it began. Because in Africa, the spirits don't just haunt places, they haunt hearts. Picture this, it's Easter weekend, 1968. The South African countryside stretches endlessly under a storm-heavy sky, and on the N9 highway between the small towns of Uniondale and Willowmore, a young couple is driving through the night. Maria Charlotte Roux, just 22 years old, is sleeping peacefully in the back seat of their white Volkswagen Beetle. She's an administrative clerk from Pretoria, engaged to her fiancé Gil Pretorius, an army corporal. They're heading to visit Maria's parents in Riversdale to discuss their upcoming wedding. The road is quiet, cutting through the semi-desert region known as the Little Karoo. It's the kind of desolate stretch where you can drive for kilometers without seeing another soul. The rain starts coming down harder, making the asphalt slick and treacherous. Gil is tired. They've been driving for hours, and the storm is getting worse. In that split second of inattention that changes everything, he loses control of the car. The Beetle flips, metal screams against asphalt, glass shatters. When the silence finally settles, Gil crawls from the wreckage, battered but alive. Maria isn't so lucky. She was thrown from the vehicle during the rollover, her head striking the embankment. By the time help arrives, she's gone. Officer Pat McDonald is first on the scene. Years later, he'll still remember every detail. A young woman with long brown hair, wearing dark green trousers and a duffel coat, lying motionless against the roadside embankment. Just 22 years old, her whole life ahead of her. The accident happens on the road near Barandas, roughly 20 kilometers from Uniondale. Maria dies instantly from head injuries, still wearing the engagement ring that was supposed to symbolize her future. For 8 years, that's where the story ends. A tragic accident on a lonely road, a young life cut short, a wedding that will never happen. But on Good Friday, 1976, exactly 8 years later, something impossible begins. Anton Lagrange is driving the same stretch of road. He's a mechanic from Oudtshoorn, making the journey from Willowmore back home. It's around 7:15 in the evening, and the autumn air is getting cold. About 13 kilometers from Uniondale, he sees her. A young woman standing by the roadside, short, with brown hair, wearing dark trousers and a jacket. She looks cold, maybe a little lost. In rural South Africa, you don't leave people stranded on empty roads at night. It's just not done. Anton pulls over. The woman gets into the back seat without saying a word. He tries to make conversation as they drive toward Uniondale. "Where are you headed?" he asks. "Are you from around here?" But she doesn't respond, not a single word. Anton glances in his rearview mirror, thinking maybe she's just shy or upset about something. Then he looks again. The back seat is empty. Anton slams on the brakes, heart pounding. He checks the entire car, looks under the seats, opens all the doors. Nothing. The woman has simply vanished. Shaken, he drives straight to the Uniondale police station. PC Snowy Potgieter listens to Anton's story with the kind of patience small-town cops develop for drunk drivers and stress cases. But something about Anton's demeanor suggests he's neither drunk nor lying. "Show me where it happened," Potgieter says. They drive back up the road together, Potgieter following Anton's car. As they approach the spot where Anton first saw the hitchhiker, something extraordinary happens. In full view of the police officer, Anton's rear door swings open and then slams shut on its own. Potgieter is a practical man, but he's also lived in this part of the Karoo his whole life. He knows the stories the old people tell about restless spirits and unfinished business. Still, he needs to be sure Anton isn't playing games. Drive a bit further, he instructs, with your interior lights on so I can see inside the car. They continue down the road, the police car following close behind, headlights illuminating Anton's empty vehicle. Both men can clearly see that no one else is in the car. But as they watch, the rear door opens and closes again, and again. By the time they return to the station, word is already spreading through Uniondale like wildfire. There's a phantom hitchhiker on the N9, and she's just getting started. The story of Anton Lagrange spreads quickly through the small communities of the Little Karoo. Within days, journalists get wind of it. One reporter, Janie Meyer, decides to investigate. Meyer tracks down the accident records from 1968 and discovers the tragic story of Maria Charlotte Roux. She contacts Maria's mother, now living with the weight of 8 years of grief. I told her about the story, Meyer later recalls, and that people thought it might be her daughter haunting that area. She gave me a photograph. When Meyer shows Anton the photo of Maria alongside several pictures of other young women, his response is immediate and certain. It was the same girl, there's no doubt about it. But Maria's mother provides one more chilling detail. Easter weekend has always been significant to their family. It was when Maria died, and it was when she was planning to announce her engagement to her parents. She was coming home to share her joy, to plan her future. Now, it seems, she's still trying to get home. 2 years pass. Anton Lagrange, now 40, has never returned to that stretch of road. It frightened me so much, he tells reporters. I've never been back since. But on Good Friday, 1978, Maria appears again. This time, her passenger is Corporal Douwe van Jaarsveld, a young soldier riding his motorcycle on the N9 toward Uniondale. It's 9:35 p.m. and the night is clear but cold. Van Jaarsveld sees her standing by the roadside in exactly the same spot where Anton had encountered her 2 years earlier. She's wearing the same dark clothing, has the same build, the same desperate look of someone who needs help. Being a soldier, Van Jaarsveld doesn't hesitate. He stops his motorcycle and offers her a ride. She climbs on behind him, accepts his spare helmet, and even puts on the earphones connected to his radio. For a few kilometers, everything seems normal. Van Jaarsveld can feel the weight of his passenger behind him, can sense her presence as they ride through the night toward Uniondale. Then, suddenly, his motorcycle gives a strange twitch. I thought she fell off. Van Jaarsveld later tells investigators, a lot of things went through my mind. I turned around. I wanted to see if I still had somebody with me. There was nobody. Panicked, he stops the bike and turns around, riding back slowly with his headlights sweeping the road. I looked to see if there was anybody lying on the road, he explains. Then I got a fright. I saw the helmet. The spare helmet is sitting on the road, exactly where his passenger had vanished, but there's no sign of the woman who had been wearing it just moments before. Van Jaarsveld's testimony is detailed, consistent, and utterly believable. Unlike Anton, who might have been dismissed as a single witness to an unusual event, Van Jaarsveld's account provides crucial corroboration. The same stretch of road, the same description, the same impossible disappearance. Word reaches the international media. British television producers from the paranormal documentary show Strange But True track down the real eyewitnesses. In October 1995, they broadcast an episode investigating the Uniondale phantom hitchhiker, interviewing Anton Lagrange and Douwe van Jaarsveld on camera. Both men, now older but still haunted by their experiences, tell identical stories. The same young woman, the same location, the same mysterious vanishing. Local police begin keeping informal records of similar reports. More drivers come forward, many only after hearing the stories on television and realizing they're not alone. The encounters follow a pattern. A young woman in dark clothing standing by the roadside near Barandus. She accepts rides toward Uniondale but never reaches her destination. She always disappears somewhere along that 17-kilometer stretch of road between Barandus and Uniondale, the same distance she would have traveled with Gil on that stormy night in 1968 if they hadn't crashed. What makes these accounts particularly compelling isn't just their consistency, but their context. This is rural South Africa in the 1970s and 80s, long before the internet, before viral videos or social media could spread urban legends overnight. These are isolated farming communities where everyone knows everyone, where lying about something like this would be social suicide. The witnesses aren't seeking fame or attention. Most of them, like Anton Lagrange, wish they'd never encountered her at all. They're ordinary people who experienced something extraordinary, something that challenged everything they thought they knew about life and death. And Maria? She's still out there, still trying to get home, still hoping someone will give her that final ride to the place where she was supposed to announce her engagement, plan her wedding, and begin her new life. Some journeys, it seems, are too important to abandon. Even death can't stop them. Not all of Africa's ghost stories play out on lonely highways. Some unfold in the heart of cities, in buildings so steeped in history that the past seems to bleed through the walls. Cape Town's Castle of Good Hope is South Africa's oldest surviving colonial building, a massive star-shaped fortress built between 1666 and 1679 by the Dutch East India Company. For over 350 years, it has been the epicenter of power, politics, and tragedy at the southern tip of Africa. And for just as long, it has been home to the dead who refuse to leave. The castle's ghost stories aren't whispered folklore from centuries past. They're documented encounters reported by modern security guards, tour guides, and even members of the British royal family. Perhaps the most tragic presence in the castle is Lady Anne Barnard, a woman whose love story transcends death itself. In 1797, at the age of 47, she arrived at the Cape as the wife of Andrew Barnard, the colony's secretary. What should have been a routine diplomatic posting became the most vibrant chapter of her life. Lady Anne was no ordinary colonial wife. She was intelligent, charming, and scandalously independent for her time. She had married Barnard 12 years her junior for love, not convention. At the castle, she transformed the governor's quarters into a glittering social center, hosting elaborate dinners and balls for visiting dignitaries. She was also fearless in ways that shocked the conservative Dutch colonists. She bathed nude in the castle's dolphin pool, dove naked into mountain streams, and wrote detailed accounts of everything she saw and experienced. When an officer complained about her unladylike swimming habits, she had steps built leading into the pool so she could enter the water properly, but continued swimming without clothes. Lady Anne lived at the castle for 5 years, from 1797 to 1802. When she finally left Cape Town, she left behind more than just memories. According to dozens of witnesses over the past 2 centuries, she left behind part of her spirit. Her ghost appears most often during formal functions, particularly when foreign dignitaries visit the castle. Guards and guests report seeing an elegant woman in an 18th century ball gown moving through the Great Hall, as if still fulfilling her duties as hostess. She seems to appear when important people are visiting, explains one longtime guard. It's like she's still trying to make sure everything goes perfectly. But Lady Anne isn't the castle's only permanent resident. In the dungeon area, something far more sinister lurks. The Donkergat Dark Hole was the castle's torture chamber, a windowless pit where prisoners were chained to the walls. During winter floods, the water would rise 3 feet in minutes, drowning those who couldn't break free of their shackles. Night shift guards refused to patrol past the Donkergat alone. They report hearing screams for help echoing from the empty chamber, voices calling in languages that haven't been spoken at the castle for centuries. Hilton Fredericks, who worked the dreaded 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. shift, describes an encounter that still haunts him. One night, a guard heard someone screaming for help and voices coming from the dungeon and torture chamber. When he went to investigate, there was no one there. But he felt a presence. His body became ice cold and the hair stood up on his arms and at the back of his neck. Even more disturbing is the sensation many guards report near the Donkergata, feeling of being pulled toward the pit, as if something inside is trying to drag them down into the darkness. The castle's bell tower holds its own tragic ghost. For centuries, visitors have heard the bell ringing at odd hours, despite the fact that the tower was bricked up long ago. Legend says a soldier hanged himself there using the bell rope, and his spirit still pulls the bell in eternal desperation. Perhaps the most documented supernatural event occurred in 1947 during a visit by the British royal family. Princess Elizabeth was celebrating her 21st birthday at the castle when multiple witnesses, including Princess Margaret, herself reported seeing a woman in grey moving through the corridors. The Grey Lady, as she's known, has been seen countless times over the decades. Some believe she's connected to a woman's skeleton that was discovered near one of the castle's old gates, suggesting a tragedy that occurred centuries ago but continues to echo through time. What makes the Castle of Good Hope's hauntings particularly compelling is their consistency across centuries and cultures. Dutch colonists, British officials, Afrikaner guards, and international visitors all report similar phenomena. The descriptions remain constant. Lady Anne in her ball gown, the grey lady in her flowing dress, the sounds from the Donkergat. These aren't stories that change with each telling. They're persistent experiences that suggest something profound about the nature of human emotion and memory. In places where intense joy and terrible suffering have occurred for centuries, perhaps the boundaries between past and present become permanently blurred. The castle stands today as both a museum and a monument, its walls holding centuries of African history. But for those who work there, it's also a reminder that some residents never truly leave. They're still there, still playing their roles, still living out their stories in the spaces between life and death. In the shadow of Cape Town's Devil's Peak stands Groot Schuur Hospital, a massive medical complex that has served as the beating heart of South African healthcare since 1938. It's where medical miracles happen daily, where lives are saved and lost, where the boundary between hope and despair is measured in heartbeats. It's also where the dead sometimes refuse to clock out. Dr. Sarah Mitchell had been working the night shift in the cardiac ward for 3 months when she first encountered Sister Fatima. It was 2:30 a.m. on a Tuesday in October 2018, and the ward was quieter than usual. Sarah was making her rounds, checking on post-operative patients, when she noticed a nurse she didn't recognize moving efficiently between the rooms. The woman was wearing the older-style uniform, Sarah recalls. The one they stopped using about 10 years ago. But she seemed to know exactly what she was doing, checking on patients, adjusting IV drips. I assumed she was a locum or someone from another department helping out. Sarah thought nothing more of it until she mentioned the helpful colleague to the head nurse the next morning. "There was no extra nurse on duty last night," came the puzzling response. "It was just you and the usual skeleton crew." When Sarah described the woman's middle-aged, kind face, wearing the maroon and cream uniform, several of the senior staff exchanged knowing looks. "That sounds like Sister Fatima," one of them said quietly. "She worked here for 30 years before she passed away in 2009. Patients still report seeing her sometimes." Sister Fatima Omar had been beloved by colleagues and patients alike. She was the kind of nurse who remembered everyone's names, who stayed late to comfort frightened families, who somehow always appeared when she was needed most. Her death from cancer had devastated the hospital community. But according to dozens of witnesses over the past decade, Sister Fatima never really left. Patients report being checked on by a gentle nurse during difficult nights, only to discover the next morning that no one matching her description was on duty. Other staff members describe seeing her in their peripheral vision, always in the cardiac ward where she spent most of her career. "She's never frightening," explains Dr. Peter van der Merwe, who has worked at Groot Schuur for 15 years. "If anything, her presence is comforting. Patients who claim to have seen her always seem calmer afterward." But Sister Fatima isn't Groot Schuur's only otherworldly resident. In the psychiatric wing, staff report regular encounters with a patient known only as Michael, a young man who fell to his death from a first-floor window in 1987 while trying to escape. Witnesses describe seeing him wandering the hallways, still wearing the hospital gown he died in, still searching for a way out. "The elevator sometimes stops on floors where no one called it," says security guard James Mabaki. "When the doors open, there's no one there, but you can feel something, like someone just stepped off." Most disturbing are the reports from the old maternity ward, where a different kind of tragedy occurred in 1997. Baby Zephany nurse was kidnapped from her mother's bedside by a woman wearing a nursing uniform identical to those used at Groot Schuur. The case was never solved, the child never found. Since then, new mothers in the maternity ward occasionally report seeing a woman in an old-style nursing uniform standing near their beds at night. She doesn't speak, doesn't touch anything. She just watches with an expression of infinite sadness before disappearing. The description is always the same, notes midwife Mary Daniels, who has worked in the maternity ward for 20 years. Maroon trousers, oatmeal, coloured top. The exact uniform the kidnapper was wearing, but it's the look on her face that stays with people. Pure heartbreak. What makes Groot Schuur's hauntings particularly poignant is their connection to the fundamental mission of healthcare: healing, helping, protecting. These aren't malevolent spirits seeking revenge. They're souls who dedicated their lives to caring for others and seem unable to stop, even in death. The hospital's management doesn't officially acknowledge the supernatural reports, but they don't discourage them either. In a place where death is a daily reality, where families gather to say goodbye and medical miracles happen alongside tragic losses, perhaps it's not surprising that some boundaries become blurred. I've seen things here that medical school didn't prepare me for, admits Dr. Mitchell. But if Sister Fatima is still here, still helping patients, then I'm grateful for her presence. In a place like this, we need all the help we can get. For many staff members, the ghosts of Groot Schuur aren't evidence of the supernatural, they're proof of something far more powerful. They're evidence that love, dedication, and the drive to help others can transcend even death itself. In the end, perhaps that's what makes these African ghost stories so deeply affecting. They're not tales of vengeance or terror. They're stories of love that refuses to die, of duties that transcend the grave, of hearts that continue beating long after they've stopped. They remind us that the most powerful force in the universe isn't death, it's the connections we make with each other, the love we share, and the care we show for those who need us most. And sometimes, not even death can break those bonds.